What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Play the Fight Song family and into the Iowa fan perspective. We have another great guest to join us here, covering teams that are on Iowa's schedule. It's worked out really well. We have, the in-house rivalries with Iowa State and Nebraska. We went out and got Wisconsin. We went out and got Minnesota. We're going to talk Iowa's rivals here, and we're just adding to the list with Floyd Rosedale. Daniel House here of GophersGuru.com. You can find him on X at DanielHouseMN. Thank you for joining us, Daniel. I should have asked, are you Daniel, which one works more for you? As we were chatting in the background, I didn't even ask the easy question.
I'm more Daniel, but everybody I've got Daniel, Dan, Danny. I mean, it just depends. Everybody has a little bit different approach.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Daniel in the media space, I'd say.
Friends will call you one thing, family will call you another one, and it just kind of goes down, trickles from there. It's always something random, I feel like, for everybody with, names that work a lot of different directions. But thank you for joining us. Super pumped to have you. Kind of wanted to go into your background and what got you started with Gophers Guru and kind of what all that means to you. I think I saw that you went to the University of Minnesota. Is that kind of where your fandom started? Was there something that started before that? Kind of jump into that for us.
Yeah, I actually started in the NFL space. I started writing when I was 16, came home from school and didn't even have a phone yet. I was like to my mom, hey, I scheduled an interview with an NFL player, and first interview called, did it with AJ Klein at Iowa State.
Oh, yeah.
And wrote Vikings content for a while, then went to the University of Minnesota, started covering the Gophers for a couple different entities, and then got done with school, decided, hey, the pandemic hit. I want to try something. So I started a subscription-based website, taking a little bit more of a next-gen approach to Gopher football coverage and other sports as well on campus. So using advanced analytics, football scheme stuff, player profiles, features, all that stuff. So kind of taking a little bit of a different approach, next-gen philosophy, getting fans up to speed on everything Minnesota football and Minnesota athletics. So it's been a fun journey, a passion of mine. So I love doing it. And fans subscribe on the website. So it's all subscriber-based and supported, which is really cool. And it's just amazing to me, the support that Minnesota fans have for, independent content creation.
Yeah, for sure. That's is it one of those things where you're posting more from your personal account? Do you have other socials and stuff where they can find GophersGuru.com stuff, or is it just through the website?
I have an account, Gophers Guru, on X as well, so you can find it there. And then on the website, GophersGuru.com, and the subscription package is $5 a month, so I get you access to all the stuff during the season and all the content off season as well. I mean, gosh, I'm doing stuff all the time, keeping up on the transfer portal and all the teams in the Big Ten. That's kind of, I have a lot of side projects I do where I've spent a lot of time researching the Big Ten. So that's been a big part of my off season this year. Is I ended up like evaluating every player, coach, and scheme in the conference, and so that was an enlightening process. So I feel like I'm super ready for the season now. I'm like, can we get this thing started? I'm ready for Thursday night, and then we can get rocking here.
Done kind of previewing or just wanted to play football at this point, wanted to cover and see live games happen. I wanted to ask you, you talked about it a little bit, the way Minnesota fans have kind of jumped in and to like your content creating piece of all of it. Yeah. What does the University of Minnesota stand in like the fandom of people that are from the state? Because I feel like in a lot of ways, people think Minnesota as a pro sports state, it's a pro sports city in Minneapolis. But I mean, you kind of look at when the Gophers are good, it's all over the place, even in basketball, even when they're, playing good football. Like, where does that kind of all stand in that?
I mean,
how do you perceive all that to be?
Yeah, it's a Viking state. I mean, it's always, that'll be the top dog, but I feel like people don't realize the passion for football in the market. I do a lot of stuff with high school, college, and pro in the state. So I get to meet a lot of people, a lot of coaches throughout the state at all levels, and fans across the state as well. And I've just been amazed at, when the product is high quality, fans will support it. They know their ball, like they understand the game. They want to support it. And I think it's all about just, having a good product on the field, and people will show up. I mean, you look at when Minnesota football has been successful, they've been able to draw. And I think, you look at student support at Minnesota has gradually grown. I think a lot of that has to do with the program, but also, the Big Ten and the expansion of it, how competitive it is. everybody wants a taste of life in the Big Ten. And I think that's appealing too. Like fans enjoy the competition. And I was telling people the other day, I'm going, everybody talks about, oh, my schedule's tough. Well, there's parity now. All the talent is so spread out. Every Big Ten school has a chance on any given Saturday. I mean, obviously there's the top tier teams, but the parity in the middle of the league is outstanding. And I think that plays into it too. Minnesotans are just passionate about football, and the Minnesota alumni base is wide. That's what surprises me too. It's like every corner of the country, all over the place, they have a wide alumni network. It's not just in Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw that enrollment's like over 40,000 at the school. Like it's a really big university. It's got a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if I was at 40,000 quite yet. Like that would show that. And then people from the cities, like from a bigger city, maybe they go down to Chicago or they end up somewhere else, and bigger cities in the Midwest or even all over. I think that's always something cool to see. Especially if like you're traveling for something and there's like I don't know what they call the alumni base, but like it's the I Club at Iowa. Like they have bases in Salt Lake City. They got them in Austin, Texas. You can go out to Pittsburgh and there'll be one. Like, I think that's one of the coolest parts of all of that.
Yeah, and Minnesota's traveled well for bowl games recently too. I mean, that's helped them get higher quality bowl games when it's down to a couple different schools. I mean, Minnesota's definitely showing out and supported in that area. I think what helps Minnesota is, you're a pro sports market with a lot of pro sports teams, but you get that city / campus feel. You can stand on the campus and look out at the skyline, and you get that city feel, but you also get the campus vibe as well. So I think that's what people enjoy about Minnesota when they get up. It's just a little unique. I mean, some of these other Big Ten schools is just the university, and that's about it in some of the cities. Yep. So having that feel of Minneapolis, I think people enjoy that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a gorgeous campus, gorgeous city. It's really cool how it's all set up. Let's go to kind of a little bit of the state of the program. We were talking about it and maybe hinted at it a little bit earlier, but when things are good and been pretty good for a while now for the university and the school, it's been good, support out of the fan base. People show up. PJ Fleck came in there after Jerry Kill years, after the Tracy Clays years, and it's kind of gone up and up and up. He gets a lot of, flack from people for like all the acronyms he does and the way he kind of acts, and he's over the top at times, but it works and it continues to work at the school. What is kind of fan base or on the outside looking in, how people and players perceive PJ Fleck and what he's done for that program?
I'm personally fascinated to see the identity of this specific team. You look at last year with Max Brosmer as a quarterback, they pivoted more to the passing game and the drop back passing game, and really putting in more of like a Kyle Shanahan, 49ers type of offense, conceptual elements that you see in the National Football League, and using that quick game more as an extension of the rushing attack. And that was kind of a departure from what Minnesota had done in the past. They were more of that like RPO type of offense, with the physical run game, skewing toward the run game and being physical in that area. Last year, they weren't as efficient in the run game. So they look at the strengths of their team with Daniel Jackson at wide receiver and Elijah Spencer and, Max Brosmer being able to really facilitate the offense and mentally process at such a high level with a quick release. And, they were able to adapt the system to what he does well. Absolutely. I look at, how PJ's kind of built this thing here is it's play good defense, it's be physical at the line of scrimmage, don't make mistakes, win the turnover battle and play clean fundamental football. That's been kind of the identity of, what they want it to be like. So I feel this year with the younger quarterback and Drake Lindsay taking over, they know they need to be more efficient, evolve in the run game, be able to lean on the run game, but also let Drake do what he does best. I think the play action passing game is something that could be a strength within his skill set, and what they have from a skill set standpoint at the skill spots, they might be able to distribute the ball around to more guys this year. It might not be as concentrated into two guys like it was with, Jackson and Spencer at wide receiver, and then Jamison Gears at tight end. They have a lot of different guys that they could potentially distribute it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at like what Lindsay is versus what they've had in the past, like, is there a true difference in how he operates? Does he do one thing specifically better? Brosmer wasn't a bad runner. I don't think he moved poorly at all. He was able to get out of the pocket and make, certain runs when he needed to. is there something that Lindsey does? Is it a bigger arm? Is it the legs? Is his ability to process things that he does better that gets everybody so excited to give him a shot, right? Like Minnesota could have gone into the portal and grabbed a couple guys, had a year fix, give him an extra, another chance to learn. But they said, no, he's ready. We're committed to this, and let's go forward with it.
I would say the 3-level stretch ability. I mean, he can make throws at all 3 levels, pushing the ball down the field. We saw a lot throwing off play action, deep crossers in the fall practices. He's definitely comfortable being able to throw the ball vertically, but also has a quick release in the intermediate game. So I'd say what to watch with him is play action. I actually wrote a big story on this week, looking at, Minnesota and the potential they could have to evolve in the play action category, especially if the run game takes a big step forward, which, they made it clear this offseason that they really want to evolve how they approach the run game. They studied a lot of NFL teams. They want to meld up the run game with the passing concepts. And you look at Drake, the core trait I would say that stands out in his game. I mean, I remember seeing him at workouts in the summer, early on when they were starting to evaluate him, at camps and stuff, and the anticipation trait, being able to throw guys open into windows and work the middle of the field. That's something to watch. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs. I mean, that's what people have to be realistic with their expectations. You look at players who are, playing for the first time starting in the Big Ten. It's going to be the highs where you see the flashes, and then there's going to be the lows where you're learning and you're making mistakes. And so I think Drake possesses a lot of things that they like within their offense and how they want to run it. I think that play action emphasis is going to be a big part of what they do.
Yeah, looking back at like the Minnesota teams that were really humming like early 2000 or 2020s, like when Tanner Morgan was at the helm, like when he had his year, I think was that in 2019 where they kind of had, their real run. He was consistently being able to stretch the field a little less turnover prone than he was kind of later in his career. And then you go into Kaliak Manis for a year, and then you got, Brosmer a season ago. They're all different quarterbacks with the same kind of skill set. Nobody really could pop over the top and like break that ceiling, if that makes sense. Like it felt like they were all going to be solid. They weren't going to make a ton of mistakes, but they also didn't have that game breaking ability. And I think that would be something with Lindsey, like you're just saying, like that could happen. Like the receiver room here, you're bringing in some transfers and some guys who could maybe have a chance to get over the top, but you've had that kind of talent in the past too. I'm thinking like a Bateman and other guys. Where are the main pass catchers in this unit? Is it at tight end? Do we have people that we came in through the portal that we're really excited about? How are we feeling in that department?
That's what I'm interested in this year is, last year was concentrated in, to Daniel Jackson being a huge focal point of the offense and Elijah Spencer emerging, after he got another year in the system. You look at what they did this offseason, go get 2 transfer wideouts. One is Logan Loy out of UCLA. He's more of a slot guy. I think he's very good as a route runner. He's sudden in and out of breaks, just a natural separator. Has great balance after the catch. You kind of hit him from the side and he can stay on his feet and redirect, extend plays, create yards after the catch. So I think he's going to be more of the crafty guy and will really shine in the compressed space area in the red zone. A high target, high volume type of guy within the quick game route tree that Minnesota has. Lemeki Brockton coming back as a veteran, made a lot of strides this offseason, really focusing on being able to separate, be a little more detailed in his routes. If he can kind of emerge and become someone that is consistent, that would be huge for the wide receiver room. Then Javon Tracy, a productive player at Miami of Ohio. He was very productive in the YAC category, working vertically in Miami's offense as well. So you see those three, you kind of feel like those will kind of be the rotation guys. But a name to watch is Jalen Smith, second-year player out of Mankato, Minnesota. I like this guy. Kind of a late blooming high school prospect. Got a year in the system. Very good vertical ball tracker. Has just natural separation ability. Like his short area quickness is very good. He's made some refinements in his game. If you're kind of looking for one potential sleeper, I think that could emerge as, maybe a vertical threat that nobody sees coming.
Yeah.
I would put Jalen Smith in that category. Minnesota, they're going to spread the football around. And you mentioned tight end too. Jamison Gears is back. They took Drew Bibber in the transfer portal from Purdue. So I think you'll see some 2 tight end maybe to help out and chip on the edges and pass protection and also be able to get them in some different groupings personnel-wise.
Yeah, I think It's just Minnesota itself has had the ability to run the ball and then get into play action, but it's just felt like last year there were chances to maybe take over a game or win a game, and they weren't there. The gap was a lot smaller for error in a lot of spots. Because like when the offensive line is humming, which is what Minnesota's kind of gotten to a point where every year we're looking at an offensive line. It's big. It's one of the bigger ones of the Big Ten every year, and it's talented. But the metrics weren't there, like the run push and the pass blocking metrics weren't there. Now 3 starters hit the door. But on the backside, you have 3 backs. I feel like you have an elite back in Darius Taylor, and then you have 2 other ones. AJ Turnell comes in from Marshall and Cam Davis from Washington. Are there any other backs in that room? And then what's the situation with the offensive line? Because, again, like in Iowa, like a Wisconsin, like a Minnesota, like they all kind of fit into the gem where they find these homegrown talents, and it's just been turn them out. Maybe they're not all first-round picks, but they're all good enough to make noise at the next level.
Yeah, I think you should have me on to talk about Iowa's offensive line. I really like Iowa's offensive line entering the season this year. Minnesota, I would say, it's a position that's going to be pivotal for the season. You see Greg Johnson, the center last year, moving over to left guard now. Ashton Beers, the right guard, moving to center. I think those are 2 strong plays in terms of moving them to positions that fit them the best. Then you see Marcellus Marshall transfer from UCF, probably slotting into the right guard spot. So the interior seems to be pretty set. Where the question is at the tackle spots. Ariante Ursary picked in the 2nd round by the Houston Texans, got to replace at left tackle. Took Khalid Tafai from Washington, a transfer. Wasn't able to work in the spring, was working his way back from something. Got back in the fall, just trying to learn everything, pick up the system, get in physical condition. He's going to be part of the competition with Nathan Roy, a 2nd-year player to Wisconsin, was a high recruit that they were able to get. Those 2 guys are competing it out for the left tackle job. And then on the right side, you got Dylan Ray out of Kentucky. I think he's played multiple positions, more skewing toward the interior, but he's going to play on the right side here. I'm curious through the first, 4 weeks, how does it go at tackle? What are they going to do schematically? Are they going to be chipping with some tight ends to help out early on? Maybe they get to the point where if Khalid Tafai ends up winning the left tackle job, does Nathan Roy kick over to the right side eventually and play at right tackle? They're trying to figure out, what the tackle spot looks like. That's going to be one of the pivotal storylines I think people should watch for in the first few weeks is how does Minnesota play off the edge? And then, if things don't go as planned, are they moving people from the interior outside? They've got some versatility there to potentially do some stuff. So watch Minnesota's offensive line the first 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, as I say, they have a good opportunity to kind of get their footing. Like Buffalo's not a MAC pushover by any means, but it's not a defensive line built MAC team. Like they have a very good linebacking core. They're good in the back end. Offensively, they're better running the football. But then you get Northwestern State and at Cal, and we kind of saw the exodus out of Cal last year and the weird situation that program finds themselves in. Yep. Rutgers has a chance to give you some issues. Ohio State, and I think that'd be week 6 almost. So there is a chance for this offensive line to find its footing and kind of get things going. Do you think, is Fleck more of a person who's going to plug and play and say, this is our lineup game 1. If it doesn't work out, we'll switch somebody else? Or is it kind of like give them a couple games to get their feet under him once he makes a decision?
I feel Fleck will use the first 3 games or so to just, okay, let's rotate, figure out, gather information and then determine the best plan moving forward. Like, I think he'll stick, if it's not going well, he is not afraid to like make a move and put somebody else in during the game. I think, you'll see a lot of rotation going on early in the season. As they try to information gather, and maybe the combination that they saw in training camp, they like it, they roll with it, and it works, and here we go. If it's not that way, then I think PJ will definitely not be afraid to mix things up, try different things. I mean, he's done that in the past before with the offensive line. So I think that's a storyline to watch. Minnesota's offensive line, are they going to be able to hold up throughout the season, and can the run game take a big step forward? I mean, that's like been the huge storyline when you do media with the coaches. I mean, they're talking heavily about trying to be more efficient in the run game because they know they need it with a younger quarterback to give him the best situation to be successful.
Well, even with you talked about writing different stories on like the metrics and the run push metrics and how the run game quite wasn't what it was years prior and it wasn't up to par. Well, Darius Taylor still had a hell of a year last year. I mean, you look at what the guy did. I think that goes unrecognized a lot throughout the country. Maybe not here in our little bubble in the Iowa-Minnesota rivalry, or, in the Wisconsin-Minnesota rivalry, where it feels like we're getting tired of seeing backs roll out of Minnesota that are, 1,000-yard, 1,200-yard capable. But I mean, almost 900 yards, and it was really tough for him. There was a lot of times where it took a lot of carries to get things going. But where are you at in the running back room? Obviously, you have the bell cow.
Yeah.
You bring in some other options, and it's, again, always a program that's got 2 or 3 guys that feel like they can put in there and feel real comfortable with.
Pair and a spare, baby, going back to the Glenn Mason era, man. I'd say running back, it's always going to be a priority. They know that that's something that they need to have a lot of different guys that they can mix and match. This year, I'd say it's a little bit of different flavor. You mentioned Darius. Darius is so good as a receiver out of the backfield. You look at last year, one of the top receiving backs in the Big Ten, being able to run routes out of the backfield, use them in the screen game, get them the ball off checkdowns, get yourself 5 yards on first down and get in a favorable down and distance situation. He was a receiver in high school, had that background, and has applied that to his game as a running back. So you see his physical dimension as a back. I think he's even taken more steps forward just from a vision standpoint. His background being more of a receiver type, he's still kind of learning the position. So I think you look at metrics, even with like backs that have been at Minnesota, this is the year where you typically see a back take another step forward. So can Darius elevate his game to even a higher level with more coaching? So I'd say Darius there. AJ Turner is more of a home run hitting acceleration type of back that you can get on the perimeter, one cut outside zone and, make plays in space. And then you got, a guy like Cam Davis, who's at Washington, a transfer, or that physical between the tackles runner, guy that can come in on the goal line when you need it and give you that physical dimension. And also Femi Jaboy, second-year player out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think he's got a little bit of something to him. I would not be surprised if this guy kind of emerges and finds his way on the field. You go and you watch different practices, like really good in pass protection, solid as a receiver, has a little bit of power speed dynamic in his game. Keep an eye on Femi as a potential guy that could emerge and move himself up the depth chart. And injuries hit. I mean, injuries hit at the running back
especially
position.
In the running back room. Yeah.
Minnesota has some different flavors that they can mix and match. Maybe they distribute some carries to keep guys fresher. I'm curious to see kind of how they manage that running back room.
Absolutely. Let's hop into the defense a little bit. This is a defense that's been one of the better ones in the Big Ten for quite some years now. You had the Joe Rossi area, then you had the Heatherman era. Now you bring in a new defensive coordinator, Danny Collins. Scheme not going to change much. We're going to kind of keep the same principles and everything. Is that kind of what we're getting out of camp and the new hire?
Yeah, I think you'll see similar principles just from a philosophical standpoint, emphasis on stopping the run, limiting explosives, tackling at a high level, valuing takeaways. I think that's something that Danny's going to place a premium on, maybe being a little bit more aggressive in some certain situations. I thought, Heatherman last year definitely did some cool stuff in the pressure game and, a little bit different flavor in terms of coverage rotation, roll-in coverage presentations, and, working more in that area with, rushing for, compressing the pocket, dashing in pressure in a timely fashion. Rush and coverage worked really well together for Minnesota last year. Now with Danny at the helm here, his safeties coach has done a nice job developing safety talent at Minnesota. I feel like you're going to see him add a little bit more of maybe attacking mindset when Minnesota's in passing down situations. The word out of camp this year has been, versatility, the type of different skill sets they have. So maybe they can show some different presentations and do some more additional exotic stuff with passing down packages.
Looking kind of at the defensive line, you lose 2 edge rushers, but you have it looks like a good base in the interior part of that defensive line. Where's the pass rush coming from? Is there a name or 2 or 3, right? If we're rotating a lot of guys that have that ability to get to the quarterback and consistently create pressure.
Anthony Smith will be one of the headlining names, disruptive player last year, working a little bit in the interior alignment occasionally, can work, on the edge alignment as well. I think you'll see him, in that 5 technique end role being very disruptive. I feel like his long-term projection, a lot of NFL scouts see him as like a 4-eye and a 3-4 defense. He's physical. He's got, long levers, speed and power in his game. I'm curious to see, how he does, with another year of development. Can he add even more to the pass rush bag? So he'll be the primary, pass rushing defensive end for them. And Devin Eastern, Jalen Logan Redding inside, Dev being more of the one technique, and then Jalen playing the three tech. Those are going to be the core guys on the defensive line. Then it's like, okay, rush end position, Danny Strigow's gone, super productive, reliable player for them. Trying to figure out what that position looks like. Jackson Howard transferred to LSU, who came back home, played at Robbinsdale Cooper in Minnesota. He's in the mix. Carter Menz, I think, has some nice bendy traits at the top of rushes, can provide some pass rush value there. So those two guys, they really need to get some production out of that rush end spot. And then I'm wondering, like, who emerges as a backup 5 technique defensive end.
Yeah.
Lucas Finnessy is getting some reps there. Are they going to move some different guys around to try some stuff? Steven Curtis is a transfer at Illinois State, just trying to adjust to the physicality jump. One technique spot, they brought in Mo Amonade from Purdue. He hasn't practiced when we've been there at training camp. So what happens at the one technique spot? Who kind of spells Devin Eastern? It's probably Nate Becker, a veteran defensive tackle. And then, they're going to be relying upon developing some guys behind those top 3 defensive linemen. I think that's going to be the question that is going to have to be answered here. Does Minnesota have enough depth on the defensive line? Are they able to keep those guys fresh? Yeah. Are they going to be able to hold up as the season goes on? And do they have enough young guys developed to impact the line of scrimmage? The line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball for me is what I'm watching for with Minnesota entering this season.
Yeah, it feels like that's a lot of the Big Ten in some ways. It's like if you can be good along both lines of scrimmage, you put yourself in a good spot. But there's a lot of teams out there that that's question mark. It's either one of them's good, the other one's a question mark, or both of them kind of has some question marks.
And they also brought in Rushan Lawrence. He's a transfer out of Stony Brook. He might play some 5 and 3. I think he's more of a passing downs type of interior guy with some versatility. So they're going to be, looking at him too. How does he adjust? Is he able to hold up in the run game? Can he provide some value in that area, or is he more of a passing downs guy? So I guess I'm curious to see Minnesota's defensive line early on in the season as well.
Does it feel like outside of, maybe the interior being a little better on the linebacker side, is there some pieces there that maybe we just need to hear about new names? I know this last name gave me trouble, Maverick Baranowski, and then some other pieces there. Is there a stud there, or is there one guy or a couple guys at the linebacker position that feel like have a shot to be the future guy and really have a breakout year?
I mean, you're losing Cody Lindenberg there. And I mean, that's what you look at across this defense. You lose Cody Lindenberg, you lose John Joyner, you lose Danny Strigout, Ethan Robinson, Justin Wally, a lot of really good football players there. So linebacker spot, I think it's a mix and match flavor. You got Maverick Baranowski's been around the program, probably going to be the green dot guy, kind of the heartbeat and, checking and making all the calls that you need to make defensively. Is a guy that, has gotten experience. Now you need him to take that big step forward, moving into a huge role, trying to fill the shoes of Cody Lindenberg. You look at a guy like Devin Williams, who's played a lot alongside Maverick Baranowski. I think he's going to play a big role. Matt Kingsbury, another guy that's popped a little bit in the spring and the fall when we've been there.
Gotcha.
Developed up, physical, downhill type of guy. He was at least twice to 3 times when I was there each practice. He was popping a little bit. So keep an eye on him as well. I think, they took Jeff Roberson, a transfer out of Oklahoma State, and I think it's going to take maybe a little bit of time for him to adjust. He's playing in a different style of defense where, downhill attacking, physical scheme in the Big Ten versus, the Big 12, the speed and space, playing in coverage.
It's a lot of sideline to sideline.
It's a lot of sideline to sideline, chasing and doing that type of stuff where now it's downhill. So I think he's the type of guy that, is going to take some time to adjust. Maybe they use him situationally. Emmanuel Carmo is kind of the wild card guy here, though. They kind of have they have some different flavors of skill sets that can do different things. So I think you're going to see them mix and match a lot. Carmo's a freshman. He's going to be kind of a guy they mug around, do a lot of different presentation stuff with. I think he's going to be an interesting player to watch this year on 2nd and 3rd and long.
Perfect. Well, sounds like we love the safeties the corner spot still up for grabs in some certain spots. Like obviously Corey Parrish had the year he did, and then Kerry Brown as well. What is the situation at corner? Is there one that feels more locked down than the other? Do we kind of have a shot to fill, needs as needed kind of thing? Or are we rotating guys in the first couple weeks?
Can you provide me with a John Nestor scouting report?
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, I had some pops early last year and it felt like there was a shot, but once it fell into later in the year, it was kind of missed assignments, miscommunication pieces. It wasn't a lot of lack of talent. It wasn't the lack of ability. He had the body to be a really good corner. I think it was a lot more. There was some kind of communication mishap, and it was the whole defense, but a lot of the time it was on Nestor's side of the field. And I think maybe there was just something off that way. Maybe it wasn't clicking for him. Speed's there, side's there, but I am a little, just curious on maybe it wasn't the scheme as much as it was just a connection point between guys. Cause I liked him early and I wanted him to be that other corner with like a Deshaun Lee and, where everything was in Jamari Harris. But it felt like when he got the reps, it was good early. And then as it got later, he started to get less and less.
Yeah. I think he's going to play a pretty solid role with Minnesota. It's looking like him, Mike Gerald
like back, by the way, we would like that depth piece back. If you guys end up not wanting him anymore, we'll take that one back.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I was looking at Iowa. I'm like, man, they really need Shaheed Barrows to hit, man. That'd be nice to get him. I mean, he played in a similar scheme, so I think that transition will go well. But you look at Minnesota, John Nestor, Mike Gerald's another guy in the mix there. The freshman that's caught my eye a little bit is Naeem Parrish. Played at Bergen Catholic out in New Jersey. Knows for the football. Really can click and close from zone techniques. Minnesota, if they see a guy, Justin Wally did it right away early in his career, played a huge role. If someone emerges and they're young and they can play, they're not afraid to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Naeem Parrish ended up finding his way onto the field eventually here. He definitely popped. But, I feel there's not a lot of clarity in terms of who cornerback 2 is going to be opposite Saquon Bryant. Saquon Bryant's got that other spot locked up. He hasn't played as much, more rotational spot snaps. But they like him. They feel like he'll be rock solid there. Then it's just kind of figuring out that corner spot. You said safety. I mean, gosh, they can do so much with those guys. I mean, Coy can slide down into the nickel and passing downs, and you have Gooseby and Kerry Brown out there. Kerry Brown can play strong, free, and nickel all over the defense. I think Minnesota can be a little sub-packagey with what they do defensively, just based on what they have. I think it's all going to come down to whether they can stop the run, hold up at the line of scrimmage. That's going to be a big factor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is like, what are they looking for out of that second corner spot? They're obviously not looking down for a lockdown guy. Are they looking for somebody who has the ability to just understand the scheme enough to not get beat deep and stay in assignments? Or are they looking for like someone who can give them a little extra for a little, something they weren't seeing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's just, a guy that's going to play detailed, fundamental, sound football, being able to play, from the zone techniques when they need to, play man, be able to handle those situations and, play. Don't be a DB that's grabby and, picking up penalties, like play with clean fundamentals. I think eye discipline is such an important part of their scheme. You look at what they did last year, inverting coverage. So you got, you got players at corner dropping into the deep half and getting replaced. Like you got to be able to communicate. You got to play with good eyes. You got to know, the type of zone depths that you got to drop to. I think vision is such an important part of being a successful corner in Minnesota's scheme. And, you see a lot of similarities to what, Iowa's done in the past schematically with what Minnesota does. Obviously they're a little bit different flavors. And, I think it was more with Rossi, the Iowa piece, but Heatherman added his own, where they were more of like you're showing single high presentation, rolling coverages different ways, inverting rolls, really trying to change the picture. They weren't, being super uncharacteristically aggressive. They want to try to impede passing windows, alter processing, get their hands in the football and create takeaways. So I think vision and zone coverage skills are going to be very important at that position, playing discipline.
Last question before we roll into the schedule and kind of get a feel for where you think Minnesota will be this year. Better unit, the offense or the defense, going into the year?
I feel like, oh man, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of unknown variables on each side of the ball. I think I'd
Mhm.
probably give the edge early on to the offense because I think, people probably wouldn't think that, but I
Yeah,
feel
it's
they
not
have
a
a lot of.
not the traditional Minnesota thing. It's the great defense, and then we have the ability to run the ball and control the football.
And I say that because I think they have a little bit of a mix of different guys they can distribute the ball around to. So I think it'll be a little bit different, a little harder maybe to defend them and get a
Mhm.
beat on what they're going to do. I think Drake, people would think, you got a new quarterback. There's going to be questions on offense. I think if they're able to run the ball enough, that's kind of the concern on that side of the ball. I think, that will help Drake kind of settle in, get him in positions where he can be successful. I think the defense, it's kind of going to come down to whether they can stop the run. They have enough defensive line depth there, figuring out that corner spot. I feel like both sides of the ball are pretty even in where they're at, but I'd probably give the edge to the offense just because I think the skill spots are more known on that
Mhm.
side of the ball. And I just
Yeah.
value defensive line play. I think it's so important, and I want to see what type of depth they have.
Yeah, I'd say it's a big piece, especially looking here at this schedule and the teams that are on that schedule, like in Ohio State, Nebraska, and Iowa. Michigan
Yep.
State might have it improved. I watched your piece on Michigan State and kind of what intrigued you so much about that. It's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of excitement and believing in what Jonathan Smith's done historically, added into
Yep.
Wisconsin and in Oregon. There's pieces there where it feels like if you're not good along a line of scrimmage, it gets tough to stay for 40 minutes and or 60 minutes and like grind this thing out.
Yeah, I mean that's where you have to be strong. I mean, that's where you're putting your research. You look at teams that are successful, they're able to rotate their pass rush. They've got stability, they can win the line of scrimmage, run the ball, and pass protect in critical situations. I think Minnesota's got a lot of opponents that people might be sleeping on, like Michigan State, you mentioned. I
Yep.
think Nebraska is going to be better. I think Rutgers. I think if their defense and defensive line can find it and they're disruptive along the D line, I think their offense should be very strong. Kirk Shiraka has a great stable of wide receivers. Offensive line strong. They're going to have a little bit more mix of backs. But you look at those games like Rutgers, Michigan State, and
Mhm.
Nebraska. Those are three critical games for Minnesota, and they're all at home. So I mean that definitely helps you out. You got Iowa on the road, which is going to be a very
Yep.
tough environment. And that style of game, it's going to all be about defense, running the ball, who can stop it. And I just feel like Minnesota definitely is going to have to play good from the jump. Buffalo, week one,
Yep.
top 3 team in the MAC. I mean,
That people are picking them to win the MAC. Like they're no joke of a MAC team, and they've scared people before. That's kind of what they've done.
they've got a defensive line that I think is going to be the strength of their team being
Mhm.
disrupted there. Minnesota's got some changes going on along the offensive line. That's the matchup I'm really watching in that game. They've got a really good back in LJ Henderson. They can
Yep.
run the football. Taquan Roberson, more of a veteran quarterback that's been a journeyman.
Yeah, a
Offensive line,
little
the
bit of a
left
journeyman all
tackle.
over the country. Yeah.
Left tackle's really good. Got wide receiver in Victor Snow, who's dynamic. I think it's going to come down to pass defense for them. Are they better in that area? But week one opponent in Buffalo. I mean, this is going to be an interesting game. I'm excited because I like Buffalo's roster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are your expectations versus what are the fans' expectations for this year? Do you have it kind of a feel where fans expect one thing and you're expecting something different? Or is everybody kind of on the same page, maybe record wise?
I don't know. I guess I haven't really kept track of what the fans are thinking. Like I just kind of soak it in myself and kind of have my expectations based
Yeah.
relative on, like everybody across the conference. I'd say, making a bowl game is definitely, the goal. I think, you want to, some of these 50-50 games. I mean, like we mentioned, Michigan State, Rutgers,
Mhm.
Nebraska, the tough road game at Iowa. You got Wisconsin at the end of the year, could be a huge game. I mean, Wisconsin, with the schedule that they have, they're probably going to need that one just because,
Yeah,
Luke
they're going to
Fickle's
be
going to need
need
something,
something.
man. He's going to need a win over Iowa, win over Minnesota, something that gets the fan base, feeling inspired. So I say,
Absolutely.
you if you can make a bowl game, based on that schedule, all the unknowns that you have, I think that's kind of the expectation. I think that's
Yeah.
everybody's expectation every year, but I think there's a lot of stuff that has to be figured out with Minnesota. I think we'll learn a lot actually through the first 3 games. I mean, Buffalo, strong MAC team. Northwestern State's one of the worst programs in America. Then you got Cal on the road. No, they lost a lot, but you know what? Their pass rush is strong. I think 2 out of those 3 games, those D lines versus Minnesota's O line, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Would you take 8-4? Because I think that's where I'm thinking Minnesota sits here this year. And I think you could switch certain games that I have picked one way and just be like, well, one of these 2 you'll win, one of these 2 you'll lose, kind of all the way down.
I think people would be happy with 8-4. I think they would be, based on their schedule and some of the variables that they have, that they got to figure out. That would probably be, I think people would be very happy with that, that 7 and 8 range. But I also think this is the Big Ten now is fascinating. I mean, I just think that those teams, there's a lot of teams clustered in that middle where, tell you what, play here, play there. That's the difference between, being a 5-win team and being an 8-9 win team. It's how you perform, in the critical situations, the middle 8 of the game, taking care of the football, situational, making the right game management decisions. Now everybody has a lot of talent, and you got to compress that gap by, winning on the margins.
Yeah, I think this season there's a 3-game stretch here, late October into the first week of November. Nebraska, at Iowa, Michigan State. I think that might define a lot of what Minnesota gets this year. Like if you get 2 of those 3, you got to be feeling really good about where things are. If you get one of them, maybe you still can get it. You can get to 8.
I think the start is crucial. I mean, those first 3 games, how do you do against Buffalo? How do you do against Cal? Then I think you're right. It shifts into that Nebraska Friday night game, coming off a night game versus Purdue. Short week for that one. Then you're going on the road at Iowa. Then you got Michigan State at home. Then you're going to Oregon on the road. So that stretch right there of 4 games, that's going to be one that is pivotal for Minnesota. They're going to need to come out of that stretch strong. That's going to define basically how well they perform. And then you look at it, you're going to Northwestern at the end of the year. Everybody's beat up. You're playing at Wrigley on a bad track. It's just going to be, the wind's going to be howling. It's going to be a junkyard ball type of game. It's one of those Big Ten throwback. Northwestern's going to try to pound it and slow the game down. And then, Wisconsin, the last game, rivalry game. So I think from the beginning of the season starting strong and then going from Nebraska to the end of the year, I think those are the 2 segments of the season that I'm going to be watching very closely.
Well, Minnesota's found themselves in a most intriguing thing on our show. A lot of pundits out there thinking there's a little bit of sleeper. There's a real chance for Gophers to scare some people. They've been good at getting at least 1 or 2 games at home and upsetting somebody. Excited to watch what the Gophers are going to be here this upcoming year. Again, you can find Daniel at gophersguru.com, sorry about that, and then at Daniel House MN on X. Any last things you want to say here? Anything else you got going on you want to plug in? Feel free. We've made it. We're 2 days away by the time this comes out to week 0, and then you are less than 5 days from kickoff for the Gophs.
Man, you better have me on for Iowa week, man. I want to talk ball.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm excited. I love the matchups of that game. I'm curious to see how it shakes out at left tackle for Iowa. What they decide to do there. I like what they got going on along the defensive line. Some of the guys that they can mix and match there. I love Aaron Graves. I think he's a really good player. I think he's underrated and underappreciated. Maybe not discussed enough, but gosh, that guy, he plays with such good technique. And I mean, that's Iowa's MO. They're going to play with really great fundamentals along the line of scrimmage. I think it's going to come down to the secondary for them. If they can play with a little bit more tight precision in that area, can they kind of figure out corner, like you were mentioning, the depth that they have there? And then offensively, I think you'll notice it jump forward year 2 with Tim Lester, kind of getting the language down. You got Mark Gronowski. Yeah. How does he fit into it? His mobility should be a good factor. I like the mix of 3 backs that Iowa has. I think all of them have a little bit different style, which, had the workhorse in Caleb Johnson, but now you can kind of spread it around to those 3 guys. You got Moulton, you got Patterson, you got Washington. All 3 of them kind of have different strengths. So that with the offensive line, Jennings Dunker, really good player. I think he's going to be fun to watch. Logan Jones at center. I like Iowa's offensive line a lot. I think that's going to be the heartbeat of their team. So I'm fascinated to watch him play.
Should be a ton of fun. Hopefully, we're both having good years. By that point, we can jump on and talk shop before the Florida Rosedale goes up for battle once again. Again, Daniel, thank you for joining in. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you here in a couple weeks or a couple months when the Hawks and Gophers square up.
Appreciate you, man.